E aí rapaziada, aqui é o Bernardo e eu tô aqui pra mais um vídeo, obviamente aqui no canal. E The Comic That Changed Iron Man Forever. Rapaziada, este vídeo aqui do nosso mano Gil Pique. É esse é o nome? Acho que esse é o nome, hein? Tá bom, beleza. Rapaziada, bora assistir esse vídeo aqui, né? Já dá like, se inscreve e bora pro vídeo aí. Legal. A The Black Figure.
We all love Iron Man. He is arguably the most badass superhero there is. He was the character that started the MCU and acted as the face of it for over 10 years. When you Google the word superheroes, Iron Man is definitely one of the first results that you will get, but that wasn't always the case. The 2008 Iron Man film starring RDJ was a phenomenal success and skyrocketed Tony Stark's popularity into the mainstream, to the point that even my 90-year-old grandpa would be able to name the character if I showed him a photo. But going back before the film, Iron Man was nowhere near the top of the most popular superhero lists. Nowadays, if you ask someone to name the big three of Marvel, there's a good chance that they will say Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. But back before the MCU, in the late 90s to early 2000s, the common consensus was Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the Hulk. When I was growing up...
Mano, é verdade, como que tipo esse ranking mudou completamente. Quer dizer, eu acho que não é assim como ele disse. De Thor, Thor, Capitão América e Homem de Ferro. Eu acho que o Capitão América e o Thor não estão nesse ranking. O Homem-Aranha tá. O Homem-Aranha com certeza tá. Agora eu não sei se tipo deixa o Capitão América ou o Wolverine. Mas pô, Thor é forçar a barra já, né? Tirar o Homem-Aranha também.
Majority of the Marvel promotional material back then featured those three characters. I remember I used to have a giant Marvel poster in my childhood room that featured hundreds of characters from the Marvel comics, and Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the Hulk were the focal point. That poster was from 2007, and in 2015 they made another one, and as you can see, the focus is much more on Tony.
Mano, esse de 2007, tipo, eu já vi incontáveis vezes na minha vida. Agora, esse daqui de 2015 eu não lembro de ter visto. Não lembro de ter visto, não. Quer dizer, eu sei que, tipo, desse jeito aqui, sabe? Esse Capitão América, esse Homem de Ferro, esse Thor, né? Esse Hulk. E isso daqui sim eu vi, né? Porque, nossa, isso daí eles enfiaram goela abaixo em todo o material promocional possível, mas de resto eu não vi muito, não. Esse Gavião Arqueiro aqui, de resto eu não vi muito, não. Cara, chama toalha, eu acho que com esses heróis. Eu acho que eu ainda tenho essa toalha aqui guardada. De quando eu era pequenininho. Daí era literalmente o mesmo desenho. Enfim.
Cap, and Thor. Although Iron Man wasn't at big three levels of popularity yet, he was still on the rise, appearing in more animated shorts and being featured on the cover of video games. The mid-2000s was a time where Iron Man was on the rise, which is what led to him getting his movie debut. But in this video, I want to talk about the comic that started this rise to fame. Comic book characters have been around for decades, so over that time period, there have been a multitude of characters who have had at least one really great run that included iconic moments. Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, Daredevil, the X-Men, the Teen Titans. By the 2000s, all of these characters had iconic costumes, villains, and panels that have stood the test of time. But Iron Man never really got that treatment. Sure, there were some interesting stories and art here and there, but nothing that screamed iconic like the other characters. That was until 2004, when Marvel released Iron Man Extremis, written by Warren Ellis with art by Adi Granov. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I think that's how you pronounce it. Correct me if I'm wrong though in the comments. This comic was basically made to modernize the character of Tony Stark because no one really gave a shit about Iron Man. Tony originally got shrapnel in his chest when he was in Vietnam, so in Extremis, they changed it to the Middle East, making the character much more relevant to a post-9/11 world, which is obviously what we later saw in the movie. I mentioned the word iconic earlier, and I want to get back to that because I think that just might be the most important aspect of a comic book superhero. You can have the greatest writing in the world, but if your hero doesn't look cool, then no one's gonna even bother picking the book off the shelf. In 2025, we could all say that Iron Man is visually iconic, but that look was spawned in Extremis with Adi Granov's incredible hyper-realistic art. Extremis has an amazing story, and trust me, we'll get to that, but I just would recommend you read this comic purely because of how great the art is. It's super gritty and completely feels like a Hollywood movie when you're reading it. The suit design is absolutely beautiful and upgraded Iron Man from a costume to a piece of armor technology that feels like it could be real. Granov's art was so good that Jon Favreau brought him on to do the concept art for the film, so this comic and its art directly influenced the future of the character's look and aesthetic. Okay, I think I've glazed the art enough. I think it's time I actually talk about the story of Extremis and how it changed Tony as a character, laying the groundwork for the one we love today. The first thing that I want to analyze is the opening when we first see Tony. Tony is a billionaire who could sleep in the nicest bed in the nicest penthouse in the world, but the first panel we see is of him sleeping in a messy lab where it looks like he was just up all night working away at making upgrades to the Iron Man armor. He's awoken by a phone call that reminds him that he is an interview with a documentarian named John Pillinger, who is basically a fictional version of Michael Moore, a filmmaker who makes political docs exposing corruption in the American system. When Tony goes to get ready, he stares at himself in the mirror, asking, "What are you looking at?" Then saying, "I hate it when you look at me like that." Immediately, Extremis sets up that Tony has a guilty conscience and is deeply unhappy with himself. As the story cuts to one of Stark's headquarters, we see a group of protesters outside carrying signs saying, "Guns don't kill people, Stark does," giving one of the biggest reasons for Tony's guilty conscience. Tony used to make and sell weapons to the military, and he has blood on his hands, which is exactly what John Pillinger is about to interview him about. Also, I just want to give you a quick side note for context. Tony has been Iron Man for a while at this point, but the public doesn't know it yet. They just think he is a suit that Stark Industries built, and it's Tony's bodyguard. Tony has distanced himself from being an arms dealer and is interested in making a positive change through being Iron Man. As the interview begins, Tony asks Pillinger what the...
É muito estranho, né? Tipo, nos quadrinhos, um tempão a identidade do Homem de Ferro foi secreta, rapaziada. E tipo, sei lá, até meio louco pensar nisso, porque no filme, né, que é onde muitas pessoas têm o primeiro contato, ele chega lá, né, usa o traje meia hora, aí não, vocês viram esse homem aí, de ferro? Não, eu meio que sou ele, sabe? Estão ligados? Então, eu sou ele. Daí, tipo, não tem muito esse negócio de identidade secreta. Não que isso seja ruim, né? Muitas vezes até é mais legal, eu acho. Mas existem casos que não.
The film is called, and he replies...
Por exemplo, Batman sem identidade secreta, Homem-Aranha sem identidade secreta, não dá.
Ghosts of the 20th century. The two go back and forth, and things begin to get heated as Pillinger brings up how Tony's weapons have killed innocent children in Afghanistan, and asks him how the Iron Man suit is any different from those quote-unquote defense weapons. Now, this next page is just filled with top-tier writing, so I'm just going to read it word for word because I think it's very important for Tony's character going forward. I never claimed to be perfect. I always knew that there would be blood on my hands. I'm trying to improve the world. Thanks for your time. I'm curious, actually. If you know my work, why did you agree to do this interview? Me first. Why am I a ghost of the 20th century? Because your arms work of the 90s still haunts the poverty and war-stricken countries that they were deployed in. I wanted to meet you. You've been making investigative films for, 20 years now? I want to ask, have you changed anything? You've been uncovering disturbing things all over the world for 20 years now. Have you changed anything? You've worked very hard. Most people have no idea the kind of work you've done. Intellectuals, critics, and activists follow your films closely, but culturally, you're almost invisible, Mr. Pillinger. Have you changed anything? I don't know. Me neither. It's been an honor to meet you, Mr. Pillinger. Thanks for your time, Mr. Stark. This interaction perfectly sets up the mentality of Tony Stark going forward. A man who is haunted by his demons, but desperately wants to change the future for the better. Tony calls out Pillinger, acknowledging that his work is important and brings awareness, but questioning if it actually has made any difference. Tony knows that with his power, he is actually capable of making one. He just needs to figure out how. The villain of Extremis is also very interesting and was the inspiration for Iron Man 3. His name is Malin, and he is a domestic terrorist who stole and injected himself with the Extremis virus. Extremis completely changes your biology and makes you insanely dangerous. Think of it as like the super soldier serum, but on crack. He commits a deadly attack on an FBI building, killing tons of people, which sparks Tony to go after him. Malin mirrors Tony as he is what Tony fears becoming, a dangerous piece of technology with unchecked power. While Tony wants to use his power to save people, changing the world for the better, Malin hates the world and wants to tear it down. This fight between the two of them is a defining turning point for Tony as it humbles him, making him realize his armor isn't strong enough. It's limiting. He is a man controlling a machine that has power, while Malin's body itself has the power. Tony gets his ass handed to him. Malin is just simply quicker and stronger. Tony is in critical condition and chooses to get airlifted to the lab where Extremis was created instead of a hospital. He wants to be injected with a dose of Extremis to level himself up and defeat Malin. Tony no longer wants to be a man controlling a machine. He wants it to be a part of him. As the procedures start, Tony is put into a coma, and it is here that we get the iconic origin that we all know and love. These panels were basically adapted right onto the screen for the first Iron Man movie. We see Tony waking up in a terrorist cave and meeting Ho Jensen after getting shrapnel in his chest, and you know the rest. I know I said I was done glazing Audiogranel, but my god, this is some of the coolest, most satisfying comic book art that there is to look at. When Tony wakes up, the Extremis successfully integrated itself into his body, completely leveling him up. Tony is now able to control the Iron Man suit straight from his brain. He no longer needs to pick up and put the armor on, and now it just flies to him when he wants it to, making him the ultimate weapon and a true invincible Iron Man. This completely changed the possibilities of Iron Man's abilities, as we see in the future comics and the MCU as his character progressed. A now completely upgraded Tony tracks down Malin for an epic rematch of power and ideology. This time around, Tony dominates. He is now quicker and stronger than Malin could ever be, and drops some of the hardest lines at the same time. You know why you frightened me? Why I had to deal with you myself? I made the first version of the suit to save myself and a friend from criminals with guns. I must have killed 50 people trying to free us, and my friend still died. A stray bullet went through the side of the hut, killed him instantly. My folks died the same way, and you killed 50 people you never met 20 years later. You're my nightmare, the version of me that couldn't see the future, some murder-happy hillbilly who never in his life had a thought about what these tools are for. No matter how clear it is that he can't be the new Iron Man, Malin doesn't stop fighting. Tony pleads for him to stop or else he has to kill him, but he doesn't, and Tony is forced to deliver a killing blow. Tony kills the thing that he most feared becoming, fulfilling a line that he said earlier in the series, "All I have is making the future and stopping the animals who want to take that future away from people." To me, that is the core of Tony's character. A man who will stop at nothing to try and better the world because he is still haunted by making it worse in the past. And at the end of the story, Tony is finally able to look at himself in the mirror. Extremis is a masterpiece of superhero storytelling in my opinion. I would highly recommend you guys start reading some Iron Man comics, because they low-key have way more interesting stories and set pieces than the MCU trilogy does, even though I love it. Iron Man Extremis is the perfect jumping on point for the character, and it's only a short 6 issues, which paces out like a movie. From there, I would maybe recommend reading Civil War, as it helps you understand the role that Tony played in the comics universe at that time period. And then after that, I would highly recommend you read Matt Fraction's Invincible Iron Man run that started in 2008. I'm reading through it right now, and so far, the first few story arcs have been super gripping, and it also has some awesome art for the armor. I really hope this video inspired you to get into reading some Iron Man comics. He may not have the deepest collection of high quality runs like some other characters, but he has some really incredible and honestly underrated stories that I hope you guys check out. This mid to late 2000s era of Iron Man is just super nostalgic to me. Like, I remember having posters and sticker books that featured the art from Extremis with the triangular arc reactor. As much as I love the MCU and RDJ, I do kind of miss this more gritty Iron Man aesthetic. Either way, there's no questioning if the character is iconic or not, so I just wanted to shed some light on Extremis, the comic that changed Iron Man forever.
Legal. Pô, rapaziada, mano, história maneira, hein? Tipo, qualquer coisa. Enfim, não, eu gostei muito tanto do vídeo aí também do nosso mano, ele contou aí, né? Fez o ponto dele. Enfim, rapaziada, dá like, se inscreve. Eu sei que é chato, mas eu peço do mesmo jeito. Na descrição vai estar o link do vídeo que eu reagi e do meu canal secundário. Confere lá. E aqui tá a bola do canal e aqui um vídeo que o YouTube acha que você vai gostar. Eu acho que é isso. Valeu, falou e até a próxima, rapaziada. Fui!